Alright, so welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful tutorial we're trying to do a simple EDA on the Bing COVID queries from Microsoft, right? So this data was released by Microsoft from their Bing search engine, this particular search engine, right? One of the powerful search engines in the world apart from Google. So they released it on GitHub, and then it's available for everybody to analyze. So this is what we're trying to analyze in this particular tutorial. So it's just a search data set for coronavirus intent, right? So that's something simple we're trying to do. So if you check it out, there's some interesting information about it. So it's having two different types of data. We have data by country and then by state. So we'll be working on the countries only. Then this is for the country. So this is simple information about attributes. So I'll copy this one and then we will start, right? So this is going to be from scratch. So let's paste it here to help us know what you are doing, right? So this is a simple descriptive of whatever we're doing. Hope everybody can see it very well, right? Very nice. So we have the query, we have the implicit intent, right? So this is going to check if it is true. That means that the query did not mention COVID, right? That's something you should note about. So based on these things, let's see some of the questions we had to be working on. So I've already downloaded it. So to download the data set, just go back to, can fork it, right? Or you can just clone it. I've already done that. Just go back to this place, then you can just download it as zip, right? That is something you can do. I've already done it, so let's move on. It's already found within my folder here. If I check here, consider I have it here, right? I have the one for 2020, right? Inside this particular place. So we'll be trying to fetch for only the one for the country only, and then try and analyze it. So let's see how to do that from scratch. So I'm going to put inside a particular folder, and then we will work on it. So I'll cut it and put inside this folder called countries, then we start working on it from scratch. So all of them are inside this particular folder called countries, right? So that we have only the countries one, and it started from January till this particular month, right? July. So we'll be trying to analyze them. Some of them are very big, so in certain part of the tutorial we may only pick a particular set of months, that because of the size, right? So let's check on it. So I'm going to open the first one. So I'll pick one of them and then we'll try and analyze it, and then try and see some of the questions we can ask on, right? So let's start with it. So I'm just going to go back to my folder, import our EDA packages. So we'll be loading our EDA packages. So import pandas as PD, and then we'll be importing numpy as NP, right? These are the basic things we always do. And then we also have to work on our visualization packages that we'll be using. So we'll be loading our base packages. I don't know whether the size is okay. I think it's okay, right? Everybody can see very well. Okay, so let's check on for the packages that we'll be using for visualization. So be importing matplotlib. So import matplotlib, matplotlib.pyplot as plt, and then we'll be importing cbon, so to help us with that plot. So these are the most as SNS. We may also use Plotly to help us with that, with some of the stuff, right? So let's check it out. So these are the most important ones I'll be using for now, and then let's load our simple data set. So there's going to be, apologies for this, right? Still simple error. So let's load a simple, this is going to be a preview of the data set. To see the data set, then we'll see what we can do with it, right? Preview of data set. So df, let's call it as df, right? Preview pd.read_csv, and then go into my 2020 folder. So in my 2020 folder, I have my countries, right? But if you go back here, we check that we had our countries, right? Inside our 2020 countries, right? And then you are picking one of them. So let's pick for only January, right? We pick for only January and see how it looks like. So I just go back to the format there. If you check it here, we had it in this particular format, right? Queries by country and then the date. So that is a very nice way of naming it. So queries by country. So let's use May, right? That is when it was very prevalent. And based on it, it's a TST file. So if I go back to the GitHub, we were told that this is a tab separated, right? It's a tab. It is a tab separated test file, right? as you can see from here. So that means that you're going to use tab to help us open it. So if I come back here, since it's a tab, I just go back to separator, specify the separator as, maybe I'll change the theme to white later on. Sub, right? Then it's tab, so backslash tab, backslash T for tab to read it perfectly. Now it's going to load it perfectly for us. It's a lot. It's going to take some time. Then now let's preview it. So based on what we have so far, you can see that it's having a date column, right? So we have a date column, we have a queries column, we have its implicit, I may not be saying it one, or we have our countries column, and we have the popularity score column. So let's see some of the questions we can ask, right? So we have about 4 different columns. So we can think about questions that we can ask. Looking at this particular data set, since we have dates, right, we can have questions on dates, right? We also have query. We can also have questions on query. So we'll be thinking about some of the questions we can ask on query, and then we also have country, right? So these are the most common ones on, as well as the scores. So let's see some of the questions we can ask. I've already written the questions down to save us time. So concerning the country, right, you're picking the country first. So these are some of the questions we can ask on the country. So how many countries are there in our data set, right? So how many countries use Bing to search on COVID in general? Then how many of the queries that they made on Bing were valid, right, per country? Which countries make the most queries? Distribution of query on a map. Does the prevalence affect, like the spread of the disease, affect the number of queries made from a country? Do more people search corona if there is a high prevalence? So these are some of the questions we can ask on a country per country wise, right? Then we also have questions on the query, because there was a query column. So what is the longest query? Because some people can actually paste the whole book into a query. So what is the longest query? What are the most common words used in all the queries combined? What are the variant or different variant of coronavirus? Because sometimes when you're searching for something, for example, if I search for corona, right, I may spell it wrong. See, that has given us all of these suggestions, right? So what are some of the different variants of coronavirus spelling, as well as the keywords associated with them, right? These are some of the things we can make from this particular data set. We can also extract keywords, because all of these things are keywords, right, that people will actually search for. Coronavirus statistics, symptoms. So we'll be trying to see whether we can be able to identify keywords, as well as we can also add entities to it too. So keywords, we can also check for recognize, so named entities inside our query, right? So some of them we can also do that. Then we can also be trying to do a phonetic analysis on the query, because it's a search engine, so we may be using sounders to help us, so that in case the person spell it wrong, it will be able to still pick the perfect one. So if I do corona, so that it's still bringing these ones there, right? Because the spelling is wrong, but it's able to identify that it is similar to a particular term that the person may want, right? So we're trying to see how to use phonetic analysis on that particular query. We're trying to see if there are also drugs and symptoms. So these are all different questions we can also ask. Then let's check on the questions on the date, right? So how many queries per day, right, in all of them? Since the dates, right, we can also do some interesting aspects, like what is the highest queries, which day of the week had the most queries, and then does weekend affect such queries? So these are some of the basic ones, because we don't want to take a lot of time. So these are some of the questions. So let's start with the first one, right, on questions on the countries. So I'll copy this one here, and then we'll start on it. So let's make it simple. So it's going to be this option. So this is going to be questions on countries, so that you have it as reference to be working on. Okay, so before we work on it, let's first of all prepare our data set, the one that we have. So this is going to be something basic on data preparation. So as we saw already, we had the data set from GitHub, right? So, and there are a lot of them. So we're trying to combine them together as one, and then use them to do our analysis. So let's start. So I'm going to open this particular folder. So be using OS and glob. We can use glob and then OS to help us with that, right? And then we're trying to see how to open all the data set and put them together as one, right? So that's something simple we're trying to do. So our task is to combine all the data set and put them as one single data set. So we can just use pathlib to help us with that, but let's go with a simple stuff that everybody can do. So os.path, dot join, right? Then I'll be going into that particular folder. So we are going into this particular folder here. We have this folder here, so we are going to 2020 and then countries, right? So that's the particular place we are going. In case you want to find it, you can use a different approach. Right, so it's going to be here. So as we said, it's already inside this particular folder of our 2020. If I go into the 2020, we have our countries, and we are going there. So I just pick from 2020 here, right? So 2020 / countries. Right, that's going to be our path, right? Our path to our file. Perfect. Now I'll be using glob to help us with that. So let's go to all files. Then from here, I'll just go with my glob. Right, it's going to find all the TSV files there. Then I'll pass in my path. Then this is going to be plus, you can make it like this, plus / asterisk, right? Asterisk, you're picking everything respective of their names, TSV, right? So it's going to list all the files for us. If I check it back again, all my files, that's going to list all the files for us. Perfect. You can see from here that has listed all the files found within this particular directory, right? Very nice. So that's what you'll be trying to see, to be trying to combine them together and then load them as one, right? So starting from January till July, right? So we can actually sort them in the right way, or we can just read it as we want it to be, right? So let's read it together as one. So we can just combine them as one. So I'll be merging them, or you can say concatenate, because this is concatenation. Concat as one, right? So how do we do that? So we just create as df. Let's call it as df query, or if I call it df query, it's going to affect us, right? So you can just call it as big df, right? Bing df, right? As one, because we just be picking one of them because it is too big, right? It's going to be like 150 megabytes. So I'm going to go with pd.concat. Then I'm going to go with pd.read. We are using pandas to help us with that. All of them is pandas. pd.read csv, right? Then I just go with f, and then since it's a txt file, I'll just put the separator here, /t, right? That's all, right? So that is the first one. And I'll say for my file in all files, it's going to read them perfectly for us. It's going to combine them together. Hopefully it's able to find them, and then from there we can see that it's taking some time, right? Because it's a lot of files. Then we can actually see everything together as one, right? So it's taking some time. So after that, we're trying to see how to work on our questions. But I think the best option is to pick one month and then work on it to save us time, right? Perfect. So let's check it out. So Bing df.head. I check it out. You can see that now it has given to us in a very nice format, right? So we have the date column, right, and then the query, and then it's implicit intent, the country, and then popularity score. Very nice. Now let's see how to work on it. So the first thing that you can check for all the countries within our list, right? So how do we check for all the countries within our list? So I can just put it as df. Let's open one of them, right, to save us time. But let's do it as time goes on. We change it to one of them to save us time. So I can just come back here and go with my Bing df dot columns. So I'm going to list all the columns. So these are the columns. Our columns are actually correct. Supposed to be Bing. See the mistake I'm making, right? Bing df, right? For all the entire stuff, we have these columns, and I want to only check for the countries column to know how many countries we do have in our data set. So it's going to be something. So Bing df country. We're going to list all the countries that we have. Dot to can go with unique to help us. Unique, right? So it's going to list all the countries that we have, right? So these are all the various countries that we have. So this is the first question we have answered. So how many countries are in our data set? It's going to be how many countries are in our data set, right? So this is the first question. So how many countries do we have? And this is all the list of all the countries that we have, right? So I can actually do the same thing that we did and count them. So how many different countries do we have? So I can see my country there. Okay, so I can just go with length, and I'll pass it here as a length. I can convert this entire stuff into a list, and it's still going to work. So this is the number of countries we have: 216 countries within our dataset. Very nice. And these are the individual countries that we have. So since we have the list of the countries, we can actually create or map them to a code, right, to help us with our plots. That is something we can do. Okay, so let's check on the next question. So our next question was valid query per country. So we want to find all the various queries within a country. So how many countries we have found it. How many queries did every country make, right? So that is the next question. So this is going to be our query per country, right? We're going to find the query per country. So it's going to be, let's equate this one to df, right? Because this being df is taking a lot of time. It's taking a lot of time to spell. So this is going to be making a copy, right? It's going to be my df, going to bing df.copy, right? So we are just using the df to help us with that because it's taking a lot of time spelling the bing df. So df, then I'll just go with the country that we have. We have all the countries there. It's supposed to be small, right? It's supposed to be countries, and I want to find the value count for all the queries they made, right? So I can actually group them and then do it in that particular way, or I can use a different approach based on how you want it to be. So let's do it simple. So value count. If I do this option, this is going to give us the number of, we're going to count each and every row and then give us the value count per the country, right? So this is going to take some time because it's a lot. Perfect. So this is how it is. So we can actually plot them all. So this is a query per country. So the number of queries made by United States is about this amount. The number of queries made by United Kingdom is about this, right? We can actually convert this one into a format that we can actually visualize. So we're trying to see how to do that. So this is the first method, right? So there's another method we can also do. So let's work on that. So this is going to be the second method. There's another method, right? So we can either use this particular option, so which is going to count them as we already know, or we can use this option, right? Method 2. This is using a group by. So in that case, it's going to be the same thing that we have, right? We can use a different method, which is going to be, we can group the entire stuff by country, then find the stuff. So df.groupby, group by country. I want to group the entire stuff by country. Then what do I want to do? I want to get only the query. So I can use count here. So we can just do it count. We can use size. Any of them is going to be. So let's go with the size. So if I run it like that, it's going to give us the same thing. Hopefully this is correct. The spelling of the query. Perfect. So this give us something similar to this, right? You may not see that it's the same, but it's the same. Right. So there's another way you can also do it. So this is the second method. So we have grouped the entire stuff by size, right, which is also going to count it for us. So let's try it and see, because sometimes there's a case whereby you may work with size and may not give you the same thing. So let's work on the count. It's also count the count. Yeah, it's supposed to be count 1s without s, right? It's going to also count them perfectly for us. It's taking some time, right? It's perfect. So that's just giving us the same thing. So either you use size or count. You can see from here that it's giving us the same data, right? So 119 using the count, right? So query per country using group by. So using group by, so that you can have it as reference group by and then size. The same thing here using group by and then count. Give us the same result, right? So either use a value count above, or you can use any of these methods, right? So method 2 and then method 3 by count. But sometimes there are some slight difference, but they always almost all the time give us the same result. Very nice. So that is one way. So we have seen how to get the query per country using group by. Now let's convert this entire stuff and then plot it on the map, right? Then later we'll find the countries that are making the largest queries. So I'll just copy this entire stuff here. Let's use the size one and then convert into a data frame, right? So you convert to a new data frame. So this case is going to be my query per country, and I'll pass it here. So to convert it to a data frame, you can actually convert this one to a data frame by going to frame. Then you specify, you reset the date, you reset the index, and then the rest. So let's try that one out. To frame, right? So I'll convert to a data frame. Now I'll specify the name that I want to use for that particular stuff. So I'm using, let's use the count, right? Let's use count of cases. So you can just call it as count. It's okay, it makes sense. Then I'll just reset it. So dot reset index that is all right. So I just run it again, then it's going to run behind the scene. Hopefully it doesn't make any mistake, converting the entire stuff into a data frame. Now this is a new data frame, so query per country in a very nice data frame. Consider we have it well, right? So we have the country, we have the count, right, per that particular day, the number of searches, the number of queries made. We can even make it better as a query. Instead of making it count, let's make it as query, right, so that at least it matches up with what we have already. Right, so we have the country and the number of queries that they made, right? So the number of queries they made for that particular day for the entire data set that we have. Now we can actually plot this on the map. So let's plot it on the map. Before we plot on the map, we're using Plotly to help us with our plots. So we can even from this place that we have now, because we have converted it into a data frame, we can get the country with the highest number of queries, the country with the least amount of queries, and then the rest, right? But let's plot it first and then we check on there. Then the simple plot of query per country on the map, right? We're doing it on a map. So we're using Plotly to help us. In case you don't have, you can just go with pip install Plotly, right? So that is how to work with it. And then the instructions for working with Plotly is that, let me show you. So these are the instructions, right? So plotting on the map. So we have Plotly that we're using to, so in case you don't have it already installed, you can just go with pip install Plotly, and then you need this particular function to help you be able to work with Plotly from Jupyter Lab, right? Otherwise it's not going to work. You're not going to see, it's going to run, but you're not going to see the plot, right? So that is the instruction. You can also find it on their page. So that is how to work with it. So I already have the code to make it easy for us, but we need another stuff too. So apart from installing Plotly, you also need the country codes. We need the country codes to enable us to be able to map it well. So I'll copy the country codes. So these are our country codes, right? So all the countries in the world and their codes to make it easy for us. So let's fix the error. Copy and paste is not good because I copied and pasted, so that's why it's giving us this particular error. It's supposed to be this option. It's a dictionary, right? So we copy and paste it there. I think that's finished. Yeah, right. So this is the country codes. So we have all the countries in the world and then their individual codes, right? So if I check it back again, I can print it out to make sure that it's worked. So let's print it out. Can't print country codes, right? So we're trying to map them to the country codes to help us with the plot to country codes, right? Perfect. Everything is working as expected. Now let's map it. So we have our data set here, which is our query per country, right? Query per country. So query per country, I'm waiting for it to autocomplete. Right, so apologies for it being slow today. So there's a country, so we are trying to be comparing them. I'm going to map these particular countries to a particular code, right? So I'll just go to my code, right? So let's go as code for the country, for that country, and I'll use the same column that I have. So it's query per country, then I'll pass in my country column, then I'll use apply to help us with that. So I can use map because it's a dictionary. It's going to map that particular dictionary with our country codes. So it's going to give us a new data frame, and then this is the new data frame, query per country data frame. If I check it out, you can see that now we have a column with the country and then the code, right? So we have our query, we have our code, and we have our country. So let's see how to use Plotly to plot it on a very nice plot. So I've already written the code to make us work easy for us. So this is the code and I'll explain it. So this is it. So this is from Plotly, right? So the most important thing is just need to import Plotly as this. Right, so let's import. It's going to be import Plotly, right? The one we installed dot Plotly dot graph object. So graph object as geo. So graph object. We are using plot to help us with that, right? As geo. That is all that we need, right? So import Plotly graph object as geo. I'm going to import it, and then we'll be trying to open it. So this is what we'll be doing. So we have our data frame here. I'm I'm going to modify these ones because to save us time. So what I'm doing is that we are creating a figure. Very simple. There are a lot of tutorials online that shows how to do this. Then we are passing in our codes column. That's why we made this particular code. That's why we made this code here, right? So that's why we made this particular code column. If you can remember from here, this code column, that's what you are passing it here. Then after that, we are going to also supply the query. This is the numbers, right? Which is the second one for the Z column, the Z variable. Then the test. So the test is going to be the country, right? So you can just put in different stuff here. Then the color is as the name goes, color. Then the rest is as expected. So this is something simple. So the most important thing you need is just the same thing that you have. Can just copy this theme code. The first one is the location is going to be the code, that is the country code. Then the Z is going to be the numbers that you want, the values you want to see on. Then the test is going to be the name of the country, right? So if I run it now, it's going to run it perfectly for us and give us. Sometimes it may not work, but with time you have to build the extension for Jupyter to enable us to work on it. And as you can see, it is working now, right? So let's go back and see. Very nice. So this is a simple plot that we have made using Plolty. So if I click on it, you can see that it's giving us some simple annotations, right? So you can see that you have Venezuela. So these values are the same values that we had in our query column, right? So this big query searches, right? So the Q is just query. So this is something very simple that you have done. So as I pass it on it, you can see that it's showing the particular stuff, right? And even let's check for the Afghanistan, you realize that some of the values were smaller. Let's check for countries in Nigeria, Ghana, right? You can see that these are the queries made overall, right? The entire data set. How many queries were made in Canada for the entire 7 months concerning COVID, right? Very interesting. So that is something very simple. So the basic idea behind this simple map we have done is that we first of all did a group by. We grouped the entire data set, right, as per the country. Then we counted the number of this. So we grouped the entire data set by country. Then we counted, let's change the theme so that you can see it very well. Apologies for this. Today it has been a little bit slow, but apologies. We'll be speeding up soon. So I'm changing the theme so that you'll be able to see it very well. Right, perfect. So that's finished changing it. So the basic idea is that we just group the entire data set by the country, and then we found the count of the query, right? We use the different method. We use the group by count, group by size, or we use a value count. Any of them is going to work, right? But we prefer the group by. Then later on we mapped all the countries to their respective code using this particular option, the country codes. That was the second step. Then we created our plots using Plolty, right? So the basic idea behind the plot is that the code is the same thing for most of all the query plots. The difference is they are going to change these places where you're going to insert your code, the country code we got from here. Then the query per country is going to be the query, the numbers, the figures, and then this is going to be the text you want to display on annotation. Then everything stays the same, everything stays normal. Then you're going to specify the kind of annotation you want to be, right? So I even changed the name here. So if I go back and I check it out from here, you can see that this has given us a very nice plot. So I can change the color in case you want, right? So this is it. So if I click on it, you can see that Greenland had only 3 searches for the entire data set. We had the same thing for Canada. Canada had over, wow, that's a lot. US also had a lot, right? Let's check for China, India 4K, China 17, right? Very interesting and very nice. So now we are done with one of them, right? So let's move on to some of the questions we can also ask. So the questions you can also ask, still with that same data set that we had, is that we can ask which of the countries has the highest query, right? So which country made the highest query? Made the highest query, right? See how I've spelled the made and then the country. So even from the plot here, we can see that it's giving us the same thing here, right? From the plot, you can see based on the color, the white one is the highest, right? So that is US. That's why you couldn't see it. And then here, I don't know which country is this. Wow, either the country doesn't exist or they don't have. Yeah, I think it's Congo or something. Wow, or there's no data available. That's why. So that is something very simple. Which country made the highest query, right? Or the highest number of queries? So that is the next question. So how do we solve that one? So we already have our query per country. This is the spelling is making it take time per country. This time our name is small, right? So this is what we had. So in case I want to find the country with the highest query, the simplest thing is I just go to the query column, this query column here, and then I just go with dot max, right? I can just go with dot max. So it's going to list the maximum number there for us. So that is 116, and this value is correlating with the one we had for US. If you check from our plots, and initially you could see that US had the same values, right? The same thing, right? 1.622 million, right? And the same thing is here. Wow, that's the same thing. So which country made the highest number of queries? Not queries, wrong English. Right, that is the first one. Now you can also do the same thing for the countries that can actually find that particular index. So IDX max going to list that particular place for us, and it's 206. So I can actually do log of it. Right, there's a particular index. So I can just do my same thing that I did above. So query per country. This is in case I want to find a location. Dot location. Then I'll pass in this particular value. Then say that it's going to be United States, right? So we have confirmed it twice that United States had the highest query, right? So this is the country with the highest number of queries in the entire data set. It was United States. The country, this is how to find the location by location, right? So we are using ID max. Then in case I want to pick that particular data, right, this is going to be to pick the column, right, or that row or that data point using the index, right? So that is how to do that. So we just use IDS max to find that particular location on the query that has the highest value, and then the same thing we apply to find it, and then just confirm that United States had the highest. You can also do the same thing for the minimum, and I'm sure the minimum is going to return a lot. So let's not move on because some countries not even make any search. Okay, that is the first stuff. Now let's move on to some other stuff you can also do. So let's get top countries, right? Let's say top countries per search, right? Per query. So what are the top end countries that made a particular kind of search? What are the top end countries that made? So what's the top, let's say top 30 countries with the highest number of query searches, right? So this is all this we are doing. You are just doing entire query, not COVID or non-COVID, right? The entire stuff. So we can check that one. So the same way we did, we can also do the same thing here, which is going to be the query per country. And I can just use .n largest to help us with that. So let's pick that particular column, query, then .n largest. So .n largest is going to list the largest numbers there. So let's use the top 30 largest numbers, and these are all the numbers there, right? And then together with their index. But I can make it better. So this is one of the ways, but I can make it better. So the highest number is here, this one, and then this one. But you can make it better by just picking not just these values, but doing it in this way to pick that particular data frame. So in that case, I'll just take off this, then I'll go and I'll supply that particular column. So this is another way. It's going to pick the entire stuff for us, right? So this is another better way, right? So this one returns only the numbers in a data set for that particular column, and then this one returns the entire data points, right? So we have United States as the highest, and then followed by United Kingdom, followed by France, followed by Germany, and then we're Canada, right? So you can actually plot this entire stuff here. You can plot it in this way, or you can even plot it in this way. Anyhow it is. So let's plot it out. So let's do a simple plot. It's always nice to visualize what you are trying to see, what you are doing, so you're able to see it very well. So in case you have not subscribed to the channel, you can also subscribe, and please don't forget to. So let's go to bar, right? So if I check it out, I'm just plotting it out. It's going to generate it for us. So that is the advantage of having pandas. You can see that it has plotted it in a very nice format for us. Together, these are the indices, right? So you can also use the other way around. So let's try that one out. I'll copy this one. Let's try this one here. So this is the first method. So this is using the indices to give us our x-axis, which is not that's informative, because if I don't know the index or the indices, right? So I can just do the same thing here, and let's see whether I'll be able to do the same thing. Plot. I don't think it's going to work, but let's try it out. See what our export is plot. Right, perfect. So this is going to give us in a better format, and still giving us the same thing, but I can actually just convert this entire stuff into a data frame and then work on it, right? But you get the point. Right, so this is one of the ways, right? But let's do another alternative. So this is one of the methods, and you realize that we were able to use value count to help us with that in the previous one, right? So since we were able to do a value count to get the entire stuff, you can also do the same thing here. Remember that you had something like this. There's another alternative method, right? We can also use a value count here, right, to count these ones per the country, and then give us the, how do we call it? Give us the particular plot that you want, right? The largest numbers. So let's check it out. So this is going to be method 2, which is in this case going to be this, right? We had our countries column. We want to get a value count of a particular stuff. So value count. So this by default is going to be using these ones to count for us. You can specify the particular stuff you want to do. So if I go with this, it's going to list the entire stuff for us per the country, because every country has a query, right? Perfect. Then from here I can just do the n largest. Now pass in my 30, which is going to give us the 30 largest countries that we have, which is the same thing as we had here, right? So this is another method you can also do. Apart from using the group by, you can also use a value count to give us the same thing, almost the same thing, right? Then instead the same values, then I can actually plot it. So this is, in this case, this is going to be a simple plot. Then let's go with the kind. Let's go to bar. Then I can specify the figure size. So figure size is go to 2010, right? So this is another way. So let's copy this one, that we have this one as reference for method 2, and I'll paste it here. Let's plot it. So if I plot it, you can see that it's going to work perfectly for us, just as we had. So it's going to be for only the 30 countries we had, right? By 1020, and it's very nice. I think 1020 is too big. Let's make it like 10, then 5, right? So that doesn't look so big. So it takes some time for it to run, and then voila, we have our plot. So you can see that it's giving us the same thing as above, and you can see the countries there, right? So United States is the highest, United Kingdom, then the France, and then Germany, and the rest. So this is another way you can also plot it, right? So with this, we have seen how to do 2 different plots using the group by method, using the n largest to find the top countries per query, which you have seen the list of these countries here, right? So these are the countries. So these were all the countries there, right? Perfect. Now let's move on to the next one. So we have answered some of the questions. Let's move on to some other questions you can also answer, right? So let's check and see whether we are still on track, right? So we have seen how to answer this question. How many countries? We have seen the valid query per country. You have seen the query per country, but not the valid query per country. So what do you mean by a valid query? According to their documentation, they said a valid query is a query that has the word corona written them, right? So here's it. So this is implicit. It is true if the query did not mention COVID. So that means that any place that we have false for the implicit, right, that means that it is a valid query. So let's do that one. That is going to be something simple. It's going to be the same thing that we have done. There's not going to be any difference. The only difference is that now we are not using the query, we are using the is valid, right? So you can just do something like this. This is another method. You can also try it out. So let's pick only those ones and then count them. So that's going to be our last question for the country. Then move on to the queries for now. There's also another one on prevalence, which we can do later on, trying to compare the prevalence and then the searches, right? So where there is a lot of disease, is there a prevalence there? So we do that one after doing the rest, right? Because that is another stuff. You have to pick the COVID cases data set from somewhere and then apply them. But let's work on this one first, then you continue. So this is going to be this valid query, right? Per country. So that's something very simple. So the simplest way is just go with my df. You have df.columns to see what we have. today is slow, and then I'm picking only this one, right? I'm picking this to find it out. So we are only looking for false, right, based on what Microsoft said. So this, I'm picking only false. Go to false, right? So that is it. So it's going to look throughout the dataset and find all false. Then from here I can just print it out. So this is the places that had valid queries, right? Apologies for the noise you'll be hearing behind. Very nice. So that is something very simple. It's going to generate it. I can store this one into a variable. So let's store this one into a simple variable, or I can just do value count from here. So these countries with, man, this spelling is valid query, right? That is a lot. Anyway, but it's going to save us time. Then the spelling is too long, but at least it's descriptive, right? Then I can just do the value count. So value count. So this, we can just do the value count of this particular stuff. We can also actually specify the particular column that you want, but this is going to be, let's specify the column. Just this, because it's taking some time. So just put it here. And you can see that it is becoming slow because the dataset is big, a little bit big, and my system is not up to it, right? That's finished, right? It did not give us the best one, but let's pick only the country instead of the entire stuff. So I'm picking only the country, counting all the number of countries within them, and it's going to give us our valid count. And this is also almost similar to what we have. So this is the number of valid queries, that is queries that were implicitly, right, with the word Corona. I can't pronounce that word. So we can actually visualize this one as we did above. You can use Seaborn, any of them as you wish, but let's use a simple one that we have. So I can just go with a normal pandas plot. So let's do the n largest because it's a lot. Then let's take the maybe 30, then let's plot them. So it's going to plot them in a very nice format for us. You can actually make it bigger in case you want, right? So that is something simple. So we are done with the valid query, and then that's giving us this option as a line, but we want it as a bar chart. So let's add a figure to it. So figure size, let's make it 10:5. It's going to plot it perfectly for us. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can just put inside the comment section below, and I hope the audio is okay for now. Okay, so now it's giving us the same thing as we had. So these are, so it is actually relative, right? So the countries with the more queries may definitely have similar for the valid queries, right? Valid is implicit queries, so United States and the rest. Now let's move on to some of the questions we can also do on the query, because we have done a lot on the country. We can also do another stuff and compare that one. So let's check on some of the questions we can work on the query. So what is the longest query? What are the most common ways used in all the queries combined, and then the rest. So let's start with it. So it's going to be interesting and very exciting. So let's start. So I have my data set here, and if I check it out, we have our data set. So we are picking only the query. So now we are working on only this queries option. And then in case I'm supposed to count the number to get the longest, what is the longest query, right? What is the longest query? So how do we do that? So that means I'm going to pick these particular queries here and count it either by the length of the characters or by the length of the tokens, right? So either the character or the token can help us know the longest query. So you can use any of them, but let's pick the simple one. So it's going to be longest query. Some people can actually paste in a whole sentence, right? You can actually paste in a whole sentence into search engine. I've done some before. Okay, so it's going to be this. So df then query. So let's make it like this option. Let's store inside a variable. So df, this is going to take time because it is too big. So let's call it as length of query, or let's make it query length, right? Query length, yeah. Then df query, right? Then I can just strip string, right? You can actually use split them into tokens, right, and then count them, or you can just use the character. So the best way is to use the character, right, or use the tokens as you wish. So what is the longest query? So with this one we are using the by character length, so that later on you can have as reference. So this is the longest query by character length. With this, then length, that is all. So with this option we can just get it out. It's going to count it perfectly for us and give us our result. It will take some time because there's a lot of data. Then we can actually use this one to find the longest query by the character length, right? You can also do the same thing for the longest query by the token length. How many different words we have? So this is going to be by token length or by word length, by word or token length, right? You can also try that one out. So if this one has finished, so let's check it out. So I can just go with df and query length. So that is printing out perfectly. These are the numbers, and I can just do dot max. Right, so this is going to give us the highest number there, and the highest number is 999, right? So this is the 999. That is funny. We can also move on and then check the particular location using the IDS max as we did earlier on. So this is 999. I can just copy this one for the location for that particular query. So this is how to find it. You can just do the same thing, IDS max. It's supposed to be df. Right, this is the particular value, right? This is the location. So in case I want to actually find that query, the longest query per character length. So the longest query per character. So the reason we are doing this one is that sometimes, in case you are making a search engine, right, you have to give a limit of how many ways a person can paste it inside, right? Because sometimes I don't know whether you have tried it on Bing or Google. If you paste in a length, it just tell you that it is too much, right? Some search engines do that. Okay, so let's try this one out. It's going to be the same thing that we have. I just go .log, I pass in my value. I'm going to find that particular location, and you can see from here that this is very long, right? So these are all the particular places that have queries that are 999, right? And it looks a lot. So these are some of them. So we are picking for this one. This is the one we are picking for, and you can see from here that this one here, right, is very long, right? This one is very long. So I can go back and then pick is 012, right? So 013 is that? Yeah, it's 2. I'm making a mistake here, right? So let's fix it out. It's going to be .ilog, right? Instead of making it 2, right? 2. So I think it's 2, right? Is it 2? Yeah, 199, right? So I can actually go back and pick that particular query by going this option. Let's see what the query looks like. Wow. As a matter of fact, this is very long. It seems that the person just did this. Copy this entire stuff here, right? Copy this one and then went to Bing and then just pasted it there, right? So this is a very lengthy. So let's try it out. Wow, that is a lot. Let's see the limit of Bing. Go to search for it for us. Wow, she was able to give us some information about it, but I'm sure it just took some part of it, right? And this is the entire stuff, right? Something interesting. So that is one of the ways of finding the longest query, right, per length of characters, right? So you have seen how to answer one of the questions. Now let's move on to the next one, which is by tokens, right? So you can also do the same thing for the tokens, and in that case it's going to take some time. So I can just go back to this, split it by space. We are using split by space, then do the same thing as string, right? Dot length, the same thing. So we can just split by space. They can also do string per the length. So this is another way. You can also tokenize the entire stuff, but it's going to take some time. So that is going to be an assignment for you. So let's just by token, right? Right, something like that. Query length by token, something like that. So that is another way you can also do. You can try this one out later because it's going to take a lot of time. So that is how to get the longest query, right? You can also try this on the shortest query, which is also going to be the same thing per length, and it's going to return a lot. So this is for the longest and this is for the shortest. this, so I can just do the same thing for IDX min, right? It's going to get the shortest. It's going to return a lot because there are a lot of some of them that are empty, right? 115, there's a location, then I can actually locate it with the same thing as we did above. So df.log, pass it here, then I'm going to see a lot of them. So these are all the places that had one. See that some of them are 17, 17, 28, 2. So I'm thinking this is the minimum there, right? Query length here is 2. That is the minimum. Very nice. Can actually try this one out. Let's give it some code. So this is, see what I'm doing. What is the minimum length of query, right? So, and even looking at this is Chinese, right? And this may be looking minimum, but it may be a whole sentence. So let's be more specific and get it by the query length, not by the ID max, right? Because ID max give us almost the same thing. So we can be more specific and check it out. So this, we are using min. So I'm sure it's going to return a lot, right? It's 2, so which is actually the Chinese one, the Chinese character that we had here. And I'm sure that this is not just a 2-letter word, right? It's a long word. So that is something simple that you have done on about the query. You have answered the first one for the query. Now let's move on to some of the questions you can also do on the query. So the next thing we'll be trying to do is that since this is searching for corona, right? So as I said, if I come back here and I check corona, right, I can make the spelling mistake and it's still going to return a similar result. So let's see how to find all the different variants of how people spelled corona, right? That is the next question. We are trying to answer the question on the variant of corona spelling, right? Corona virus spelling, right? What are the different variants, how people spelled corona, right? So that is what we're trying to do. So let's work on it in a simple way. So I'm going to get all the lists of this particular place. So I'm just going to my queries column, this column, right? We're going to fetch everything there. Then we are going to analyze and find the different spelling, because you can see that this is coronavirus, but some people may not spell it well, right? So be working on that. So in order to do that, let's try it with a simple option. So let me put the entire stuff there. So I call it all terms. Let's make it all terms, right? All the query terms, right? All the query terms. I'm going to go with my df.query. First one, convert it to a list, right? So I'm going to convert the entire stuff into a list, right? It's going to take some time. Then let's do the same thing for as a couple. So this is going to be for the list, and this is going to be a document, right? So we are just creating a simple corpus, right, for it. So let's call this all. Let's call it all query corpus, or we can call it all query docs, right, for short. Then I'll just go back to the same thing that we did above. So all, let's join them together, because this one, if we go back and then we check this one here, you can see that it is in the format of a list, right? Query terms. Let's print the first 10, the format of a list, right? Very nice. We'll be trying to look through this particular stuff and find all the variants, different ways people spell corona, right? So that is what we're trying to do. So I'll just do the same thing for the docs, join them together as one corpus, which is going to be my all. Let's make it this option. We are using a simple join function. You can use a full stop, but let's join all query terms. I'm going to join them together as one, right? Perfect. So I think that's finished. Now let's work on our question. So what are the different variants that we can get from there? So the simplest way is that this is, we want to find all matches, right? So I'll just create a simple function to help us with finding the matches. So let's understand it simple with regis. So we import in regis. We import regular expression, and then we work on it. So let's do a simple stuff. So to find all match, you can just do find all, then I'll pass in my particular pattern. So this is going to be my pattern. And the pattern I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the word corona, right? Coro. What I'm using for the word coro right? Anything with kuru, or can make it corona. So kuru, right? Something like that. And then I will specify that anything that follows after, it can be in different formats, right? That is the second option. Then I'll specify my list. So let's use a word like coronavirus. Apologies for the noise behind. Then let's try a different spelling again. Right, perfect. So this is this one. So if I check it out, so it's going to find all of them that matches this particular term, giving us an error. So let's face it out. Right, so I made a mistake here. It's supposed to be this. So it takes only two arguments. I gave it more argument than necessary. Seems that today I'm slow a little. Apologies. Okay, so let's run it again. It's going to find all the matches there. So you see that it was able to find coron, right, from these things, right? So we're trying to use that same idea to be able to get all the particular words from that, right? So we can just do this. This is one of the ways. So let's try another option. So it's matching the term there. So let's try with a word that doesn't have that. So COVID, right? And let's see whether to match. So it's not going to match that one. It's going to pick the 3 and omit the COVID, right? So in the same way, I can also try it with another option, and let's use every word that follows, right? So in that case, it's going to be this option. So backslash W. So every word that follows this particular option. So let's make it as crew, right? So in that case, it's going to not only just pick this crew, it's going to pick every word that follows that particular pattern, right? So let's check it out again. So that now it's going to identify them. So coronavirus, and then we can also add something that is going to omit. So let's something like COVID-19, let's say cocoa board, right? So if I check it out the same way, you see that it's going to fetch the coronavirus, but omitted COVID and cocoa board. So we're trying to use the same idea to be able to find all patterns of the word, right? So the best way is not just to use coron, but I think the best is to go with koro. Right, you can make it like this. You can make one for COVID, cough. They're going to find only the COVID, right? That's another way. So let's create a simple function to help us with that. So it's going to be my find corona term. That is the most commonest way everybody does call it. Now passing my test corona, right? Then from here, I'll use the same regular expression that we had above to help us with that. So return. Then I'll just go with the same thing. So we are fetching for only the word crew, right? So everything that the person applies, if it matches this particular term, crew, right? If it has crew and any other following, we're going to be picking that particular stuff. So this is going to be test. So let's try it on our sample test here. So I have, let's take the all docs, right? All query docs. Let's pick the first values, right? Because it's a lot, otherwise it will take a lot of time. Let's pick the first 100 lines. Perfect, right? So we see that we have coronavirus here, we have coronavirus here. So let's see whether to be able to pick it out, right? So I'll just pass in to my function. So find corona term, right? And I'll pass in my value. So I'm passing in this particular value to test it and see whether it's going to work. So if I pass it here, let's check it out and see. Consider from here give us an error because we did not spell it well. It's term. So that is giving us, going to find all the word coronavirus. So that is what we're trying to do. So we're applying the same particular function that we created on the entire data set and get all our variants. So we can call it as my variant for corona, right? Then I'll pass in my term to find corona terms. I'll pass in all the query docs. This is going to take a lot of time, right? So let's check it out. Going to take a lot of time. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can just put inside the comment sections below, and please check the link below for some interesting materials on machine learning, on Python, on bioinformatics, on the new upcoming course. Okay, so let's see what you have done so far. So if I go back here, So it's going to list them out perfectly for us, right? Then it's going to give us all of these ways. Very nice, which is a lot, right? So there are different spellings for coronavirus that you're going to discover today. So let's count them, right? So I'll just be counting this entire stuff here. So I'll be counting the entire stuff. So let's count it. So length of this variant of the word corona. What is the, how many do we have? How many different words there? We have about, wow, that's a lot, right? It was able to find about this particular amount there. Now we want to get a set of them, right? The unique values, and then count them out. But let's do a simple count of how many times a particular pattern, right? Finding the count of it, the count of how many times a term appears in our search in the entire data set. So that if we use collections, so from collections import counter, right? So we're using counter from collections to help us with that. Then I can just do something simple. So let's going to be the count of COVID-10. So in this case, this is for coronavirus. You can also do the same thing for finding the word COVID, right? So that's going to be an assignment for you. So counter, and I'll pass in my variants there. So that is another way, right? So let's check it out. And if I go back and I just get the count of the COVID terms, you're going to see some of them are going to be higher than the others, right? So you can actually plot them out. So I check it out. Wow, that is a lot. So these are all the various different ones there, right? So we can see that there are different spelling, there are different ways people spell it, right? So many, right? Wow. And some of them are so high than others. So we can get the most common. Let's get the most common 100, because these are a lot. The most common 100. So these are the most commonest 100, and the most commonest term appearing within our queries, right? Because it's about coronavirus is coronavirus itself, the correct spelling. Then you also have corona, right? Followed by coronavirus. You also have coronavirus with some space, and then so there are different spellings, right? So these are all different spellings. Coronaviruses, coronavirus set, corona v, coronavirus, wow, chrono. So you see that these are all the various ones. We can actually plot this one. Let's plot it out. It looks nice to plot. So we can plot it out with this option. So let's plot it out. So we are going to plot the variant. So the simplest way is that, let me convert into a dictionary. So this is going to be my, let's give it any name. So count of, let's call it as COVID. Count COVID, right? Because the spelling is taking too much time and then I'm becoming slow. So I convert the entire stuff into a dictionary. I just get in there. Let's get 50, not 100, right? So I'll be able to plot it. So it's going to fail because I omitted this one here. Then now let's check it out. So it's in the format of a dictionary. I prefer the dark theme because I am able to see well with the dark theme. Okay, perfect. So now let's plot it out. So if I go back to this count COVID, it is in the format of a dictionary, right? So I can just use the keys and the values to plot it out. So let's plot it out. So I'll be plotting it out at plot.bar. Then I can just unzip them out, right? I can just use this option of my count COVID. This is a dictionary, so I can just get the keys for the first one. Then I can also try the same thing for the COVID. Sometimes this will fail. Dot values, right? So let's check it out. Hopefully it doesn't fail because this is 50 and it's a lot, right? So it's able to plot, but let's use the plot.show. Right, it was able to plot it perfectly for us, as you can see, but it's not clear, right? This is not clear, so we can make it better. So let's pick 30 instead of 15 because 50 is too much. 30, then do the same thing here. Plolty.bar. Let's specify this option, right? S-text. So S-text is going to help us with our column, the labeling, right? I'll comment it out so that I see what I mean. 45. So I'll just take this one out. Let's plot it. So this is just plotting 30, and if you can see from here that this is giving us a very nice plot, but this is still not clear, right? So we can plot it in a better format. So I've added the figure size, and now let's plot it. So this is going to be better. At least it's going to help us see it clearer. Okay, so you can see that this is better than the previous one. This is better, and then you can see it very well. That is the purpose of the S-text, right? So the S-text is going to rotate the label to 45 degrees. You can see from here that the highest of them is coronavirus, followed by corona, followed by coronavirus. You can actually limit it here and make it better, because it looks like you're still not seeing what we want to see, right? It's not as clear as we want to be. Let's make this one as 10, 15. This has been a very long tutorial. My apologies. So this is going to be a different format, right? Doing the same thing for us. Very nice. So you see that based on our term, the most commonest terms there, right? Based on how many times this particular word coronavirus occurred, is this particular column here, followed by corona. So in case you are making SEO, right? SEO for your website, right? That is one of the applications. So these are the terms you can use: coronavirus, corona, coronavirus, coronavirus. So these are key terms that you can use in case you are trying to do SEO to help optimize your search engine, right? So this is a simple narrative you can also use as an application. So the most commonest, can spell variants are coronavirus, coronavirus, followed by corona, and then chrono. Right, so this is very useful in case you are trying to do for SEO, right? So in case you're writing articles, you add this one as part of your tags. At least people searching from different countries will be able to get this particular stuff. Okay, that is something simple that you have done so far. Now let's move on to the next session. So let's convert the entire stuff into a set, right? So that we'll be able to get all the different brands. So this is one of the ways. So we move on to the next option of finding the other one. As we check for the length, we check for the length of the entire stuff, and the length was about 20 something, right? 21 this value, right? But we can reduce it because some of them are repetitions. So after you have found how many times a particular term appear using the counter, and we found out that coronavirus appears more than any of them, followed by corona, then coronavirus, then coronavirus, right, with a space. So we can also do the same thing to get the unique variant. So it's going to be my unique, can spell unique variants, right, of COVID. So in that case, to get the unique variant of corona, let's call it corona, because we can also say for the term corona, just go with set, then I'm passing the same thing I do. So COVID query, right? You can also try that one out. There's another way you can also do that. So this was variants, right? So we can just get the unique variant. So variant corona. So this option. I'm always trying to tap because I don't want to be spelling it and it's still not working. So spelled it wrong. hopefully the spelling is correct. So that is something very simple you have done. So you have seen how to extract some simple insight from the data that you have from the queries. You have seen how to extract the different variants of the queries, and then you have seen the most important words to use in case you're trying to do SEO, right? Some of the most important terms and tags to use. So this is going to fail. Perfect. So let's check out the length now. So this is going to be the unique values that you have. So unique variant. So the length now so far has reduced to 498. So these are the different ways we can spell the word corona, which the search engine Bing has been able to find. So if I go back and I print this one out, it's going to be in the format of a set, which is very informative, right? So you can also use this one. So these are the terms that you can use. So these are the different ways people have been spelling it, right? And it's a lot. So some of them are coronavirus. See how somebody even spelled it. This was spelling mistake, right? So you can use the same thing as spelling mistake. Now let's move on to the next stuff. Since we have been able to get this one, we can also use this same idea that you have gotten to do phonetic analysis, right, on this particular term. So this is going to be on phonetic analysis on the variant, on the various ways we spell corona. So this is something simple that we're trying to do. So we have seen the different ways that people have been spelling it, and then we have seen the most important ones which have been found, but you're trying to see how to use a search engine, right, or a database to help you identify the way it is spelled. So that is what is called phonetics. So phonetics is how words are pronounced and how it is spelled. So there are several packages that can help us with that, but we'll be using, among the packages is the phonetics package. We also have the jellyfish, and then the rest, right? So these are the most commonest ones. So let's see how to work on the phonetics. So in case you don't have it, you can just go with pip install phonetics, right, to help you. The same thing with this. So pip install jellyfish. It's supposed to be jellyfish. So these are the two main packages, but we're using phonetics to help us with that. So let's import it. Import phonetics. Then with phonetics, there are a lot of things you can do. There are several ways in which we can see how words are spelled and then how they are pronounced. If I go with the DRL phonetics, it gives us several algorithms. We have the soundest, the most famous, the first one that came was soundest, which is using some set of values and a number, taking out all the vowels, leaving all the consonants and giving them a particular number. We have the NYSIS, right, a very powerful, famous one. We have the metaphone, right, and we have the updated or better format for the double metaphone, right. So you can use this one to help us with that. So let's try it out. So let's check it out. So this is going to be using, so we are using the simplest one, the first one that came, soundest, right. So soundest is another algorithm that allows us to be able to see how a word is pronounced, right, and it's useful when you're trying to work with SQL search engines and some search engines too. So let's check it out. So I have phonetics, right, dot soundest. That's what I'm passing my term. So let's pass in a term like coronavirus. So if I pass in coronavirus, this is how it's going to see it there, right. So to give us some numbers to see, it's going to strip out all the vowels, so O, and put some values there. Then there's a particular map in there, right, which is comparing it to give us a particular spelling. So that is how it's going to be. That is using soundest. We can also try it on a different one, which is, in this case, you're not using soundest. Let's use metaphone, right. The metaphone is very powerful for that. So the metaphone. So in that case, it's going to be the same thing. Just change this one. So the metaphone. So this is going to give us a different way in which it's spelled, and this is more better than the rest. So this is very useful than the soundest, right. The soundest is useful, but I prefer the D metaphone. That is the updated, the recent one, and this is how it is spelled, right. This is how it is pronounced. So coronavirus, right, you can see that it's CKRNFS. So we'll be trying to see throughout our unique variant which of them match this particular way or how it is spelled. So we can also try another one. Apart from the D metaphone, there is the New York own, New YS. Let's check the metaphone. Checking we have the D metaphone, double metaphone. We also have these ones. I'm always in a hurry. Apologies, because it seems we are taking a lot of time. So this is another way it's going to spell it, right. So almost the same thing, right. but this is using double. So this is going to give us the two ways they spelled for the demeter phone, right? The two different variants it has, and it's going to give us only one, right? For only one. That's why they give us, it returned only one. In case there are different spellings, different ways it is pronounced, it's going to produce the same thing here, right? Then let's check for the last one, the New York one. I said New York. I think it's New York. NYSIS. So this is another method. So this is also going to give us a different way in which it's spelled. And this one is how it is sound, right? Ka, right? C, right? So something very simple. So these are the simple phonetic analysis you can do on the term itself. The advantage of this is that in case you are building a database, you not only be searching for the particular term, but you also be searching for the sound it produced, right? So that you'll be able to fetch all relevant term. So in case I go back to Bing as we did earlier on, and I spell it not on how it is pronounced, like Corona, it was able to give coronavirus, and let's make it like Corona. That's still bringing the same thing, right? It's using the sound of it, not necessarily just the search engine, right? Of course, it's using other things, but this is one of the ways you can use to help you retrieve similar terms, right? Based on how it is sounding, because these ones are usually the same thing. So we're trying to apply the same thing on the entire data set. So let's check it out. So we'll apply it on our unique. To be applying it on our unique, I'm going to see how much it is, right? How it looks like for all of them. So I can just go it for my word in my unique. Here are the unique variant. This one, right? The one that we had. You can actually create a dictionary or create a Panda data frame and do that, but let's move on straight away with this. I can now print it out, right? This was a lot, but let's just pick the print. What am I going to do? I'm going to print the original word. So original. So to the original word, which is going to be this, right? And then the new spelling. This is going to be the phonetics, right? So I'll just use a simple format string. You can use a string if you want, but I prefer to use this one so that in case you are from the past, you can still be able to use it. So word, the word itself, then I'll pass in the next option, which is going to be the phonetic. So phonetic, let's use the metaphone, right? The metaphone. Now pass in the word there. So let's run it and see. So we're going to print the original word itself within our dictionary, and this is how it is, right? So you can see that it's still printing because there are a lot. Hopefully it doesn't crash. You can see that from here, you can actually convert this one into a dictionary, then into a data frame, and then you can do a lot of things with this, right? So these are how it is spelled, right? So coronavirus, this is how it is spelled. So you see that the most important thing there is this, right? Most of them are one. So this is finding the same thing as this, although the spelling is different. This is coronavirus. See, coronavirus is the same thing here. So in case I'm searching for it, it's going to pick the same thing. If you check this one again, coronavirus, there is no I there, right? The I was missing, but it produced the same thing, right? So that means that this is useful in case you are trying to help your users, even if they spell it wrong, right? Very nice. In that case, you are basing it not on what the person is spelling, but on the phonetics. That is how to do the phonetic analysis on our query. Now let's move on to some other stuff we can also do. So the next thing we can also do is that we can still on the query. This is more like NLP stuff, right? So still on the query, we can also ask some questions. So the question we can also ask is that we can do some keyword extractions, right? So we'll be trying to do keyword extraction, and then later we'll move on to do name entity recognition from our queries. So NER. Right, so we'll be doing keyword extraction from it. We'll be using a very nice package called Yik. There are several packages here, so we can use Yik, right, which is using an unsupervised method to find the relevant keywords. We can also use Rig, which is also rapid automated query keyword extraction. Then there is, of course, there is test blob. There is also test rank. All of these things are useful to help us extract keywords, right? There's test rank, there are lots, right? So let's try the Yik one. Later on, you can also, there's a whole video available in the links below about keyword extraction in depth, right? So let's check the Yik, right? So to work with the Yik, you just go straight away. Is the current one on PyPy is deprecated, so you can install it from the official website here. Let me show you. So this is the official website, right? So this is on, I said official website. This is on GitHub, and this is how to install it. So the one on PyPy, as I said, is deprecated. So to install it, it's just simple. You just go back to this place, and then you can just follow the instruction, right? So it's very simple. You just clone it from here. Let me show you. Apologies for how long it has been. So just copy this one, right? You just copy this one here, copy this, Control C, then you install it, right? So that is how to install it on the system. This is for future, in case you want to install it. For installing this one, right? It's very simple. So that is how to install it. Now let's work on it. So I've already installed it, so just import Yik. There is also multi-Yik, or no, multi-rake that you can also use, right? So let's check on it. So we'll be working straight away with it. So I'm going to create my keyword extractor, right, to help us with that. So it's going to be my KW extractor, creating a variable. And I'm going to import Yik.keyword extractor. That is all. So you can specify the language, but let's go straight away with this option. This is an unsupervised method, so it is language agnostic, right? So irrespective of the language, you still use the same brain behind and then find a particular term for us. Then from here, I can just go with my query, or I can make it like keywords query. Keywords, let's make it like inquiry. Don't want to spell the entire stuff, it's taking too much time. Then I'll just go straight away with my keyword extractor. Then I'll just go with extract keywords. So extract keywords. Now pass in my all query. So I can just pass in the all query docs. Remember that you had the docs there, which was this, right? We had not the terms but the docs, right? And it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time, but let's work on it anyway. So it's going to run it. It will take a lot of time, and then after that you will just try and highlight stuff from it. So let's make it like this. Just take so you can just try the entire stuff later on. So let's go back and check it out. So I'll just come back here and then just pass in 0 to, let's make it 1000 for now, or make it 2000, right? It's going to get all the keywords within them. It's going to take some time. The other one took so much time, so I had to restart the entire kernel. So whilst it's doing that, let's see some other stuff you can also do. We can actually preview everything that you have done, right? So we can just print it out like this. So print my keyword that's finished. So we can just print it out straight away. So print. Let's go straight away with this keyword in query. So it's going to list all the keywords there for us, and that is the advantage of using Yik, right? So these are the keywords, the most important and relevant keywords there. So we have coronavirus, and it's using the format of a trigram, right? Bigram, like 3 gram, right? 3 n-grams. That is a basic understanding. So you can do it for a lot of things. We can actually highlight the entire stuff here also, in case you want to get the highlight from a particular text. So in that case, we're using this particular option, and then we can specify a particular span that you want to use, right? So I'm trying to give them a royal blue color for all the various keywords found there. So let's run it again, and I'll just come back to this place and do another th, right? Dot, then I'll specify what I want to do. So I want to highlight the entire stuff. So highlight. So I'm going to, I can't spell highlight it, and then move on straight away, right? So I just pass in my text, which was the all document, the all query document, right? So if I run it like this, it's now going to use the keywords found there and give us the same text that we had, but in a different format, right? So that's the basic understanding behind it. But you can also make it nicer. In case you don't want this option, you can use can use HTML. This is, since it's a custom HTML, we can actually use HTML to help us with that. So let's go with from IPython. I use my Python HTML option. .core.display, import display, and then HTML. Right, we are importing display and then HTML. So that's the basic understanding behind it. So we'll be using this particular option to help us view it in a very nice way, right? So that is the advantage of using Yake. So you can use Yake to extract the keywords. You have seen that these are the most important keywords there. So coronavirus, virus update, and you can see that some of them have countries there, right? Ecuador, El Dorado, right? So some people search by the virus and then the country, right? So that is something interesting that you can do with it. So let's hope it has finished. So it's taking some time for it to run, but whilst it's doing so, let's go back to this option. So it's going to map them as expected, right? So it's going to be my display, and I pass in as HTML, and I pass in my th.highlight, the same thing I had here. So this is the same thing I'm going to be passing here to be able to see it in a very nice format, not just the normal one. So I'll copy this one. I'm using the inbuilt IPython HTML display to convert this particular HTML into the right format for us. So it takes some time. So I reduce it to 100, right, to make it 1000, make it easier. So this is okay, right? You can see that there's a span, but in case I want to see this one out, I can use this option. So I'm using from IPython, I'm using display in HTML to help us see this one in a better way. Then I just pass it here, right? So this is something simple to help us with that. I've written the code ahead of time to save us time. You can see it's going to give us the same thing, but this time it's going to put a very nice color. This particular stuff are going to be converted into HTML, right? It's going to give us a very nice display. So it's too much. Let's make it 100 or 1000, right? Because of the time, it's taking a lot of time. So there's another mistake here. Let's correct it again, and let's run it again. Voila, you can see that now it is working perfectly, right? You can see that it is giving us our color there, right? So that is something very cool we can do, right? So with Yake, you can extract keywords, and you have seen the most important keywords you can find, which can be maybe coronavirus spelled right. Map is also another keyword you can find. The country, Cortana. So let's do a simple name entity recognition on this, and then we'll be done. So another time you work on the date because we are taking a lot of time. Okay, so let's check that one out. So I've already written the code for NER. So I'm just using Spacey to help us extract all the entities, and I'm using Displacey to help us display it just as we did above. So I'll be using this code here. So I'm going to create an NLP object from the first 100, right, or the first 3000, so that we don't spend a lot of time, because Spacey has a limit except to use a different system that is more powerful than my own system I'm using. Okay, so after it has finished, then we continue. Right, so that's finished. So we are loading the English model, the small model, and then we're going to just create an NLP object for this one. Right, something very simple. So you can extract all the entities from this, and then you can actually display them. So let's rather display them. So display. So let's go with this option dot render. Right, and then we are going to render the document. You're going to pick only the entities from it. Right, it's supposed to be ENT, right. This is how to display it with Spacey. I'm making a little mistake. Perfect. So let's run it. So it's going to render, pick this particular document, the first 300, and give us all the various entities. You can see from here that just the first 3000 rows, some of them are in this particular option. So Ecuador, ONG, some of them are correct, some of them are not correct, right? But you can identify some very simple information from this. Mostly it is countries and then the term coronavirus. So coronavirus in Israel, right? The same thing I can see in most of these things. That is the basic understanding behind this simple analysis you have done. You can also see the dates also, and then some of the places. So it is place and then the virus, and I'm sure there's going to be places of people's names too there. Okay, so thank you for watching this long tutorial. So you have seen how to start from scratch. So from the beginning we saw how to fetch the data. You have seen how to do some interesting analysis on the query and then on the country. So another time we're trying to work on the country. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can just put inside the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe. See you another time. Stay blessed.